number was so high, but I didn't realize that many people died on the cruise ships. I do remember that footage of people on cruise ships, and I do remember people wouldn't, certain countries wouldn't let them dock. And I actually think Florida was a state that said, no, we don't want to take the cruise ship here. I think that was a controversial thing. I'd have to go back and check, but I think we rejected one too.
You are absolutely right. In one of the features that covers, the COVID related matters, Florida has a central role in that feature. So
yikes! I just
that ship ultimately, the one I talk about in that feature, they were refused initially in Florida, and then finally Fort Lauderdale took them in.
I found that very heartbreaking because we took our last big vacation was a cruise. We went to Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic and St. Thomas, and we had a great time. But it wasn't that long before COVID hit, and when those ships were coming in, I said to my family, I really feel for these people because that could have been us. And that must have been very terrifying. And I didn't realize you had captured that story. How did you get in touch with that person? How do you get these people to let you interview them? How do you meet them?
Well, it's interesting. In the first book, it was sort of me cold calling. I was some anonymous guy on the internet, and I would reach out to people, and sometimes the reaction was, go jump in the lake.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because like I'm conjuring like a whole Craigslist like horror scenario.
Yeah, but after I got a couple of successes, the word kind of got around, and I actually had people who reached out to me saying, "Hey, I heard you're writing this book. You might want to give such and such a call.
Oh, neat.
I'd like to talk to you. That kind of thing." So it was some of that, a lot of that in the first book, and it was much of the same in the second book. But in the case of the virus-specific cruising stories, there was one couple that I featured, and here's how I learned about them. So they were in the Naples Daily News.
Oh, wow!
And the Naples Daily News story interview actually took place while they were on the ocean. So it took place in early March. The pandemic had been declared. They were trapped, or not trapped. They were quarantined in their room. And so when the Naples Daily News story took place, they had been quarantined or locked in their room for 3 days.
Wow.
So I read that story. Well, then a few months later, when I decided to change the focus of the book somewhat, and I changed the title of Cruising Interrupted, I reached out to this couple. They live in Bonita Springs, and I told them who I am, told them I read about them, and I told them about the first book, and I said I'm writing the second book, and I'd love to talk to them, and they agreed.
Neat.
So that's how I reached out to them. So the way I reach out to people, it varies. Sometimes it's cold calling. Another person, the person who I said caught COVID on a cruise ship. So I was in a CNN article. A CNN reporter reached out to me, and she said she heard I wrote a book, and she wanted to get she was doing an article on people who couldn't wait to cruise again. This was like mid 2020.
Wow, I don't know how I missed that.
Yeah, so I'll send it to you. But anyway, so the article came out, and so the very first, and so the people who interviewed in the article, it's funny. I was the most cautious person in the article, and here I am with a book called The Joy of Cruising. But I was clearly the most cautious person interviewed. But the first person whose picture accompanied the article, I read the beginning of the article, and this woman was on the ocean during the pandemic. She had, it went on to say, she had half a lung because she was a lung cancer survivor.
Oh, no.
She caught COVID on the cruise ship.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway, to make a long story short, it was a relatively happy ending.
Wow.
But I knew that I needed to talk to this person.
That's terrifying.
And so I reached out to the CNN reporter who contacted me originally, and I said, "Hey, can you put me in touch with Christine? Because I'm writing a follow-up book, and I'd love to talk to her." So she did. And so
nice.
now Christine's in the book, and that's the one who has the feature COVID on a cruise. Can't wait to cruise again.
Oh my gosh.
So the way I meet these people, it varies. It's a lot of cold calling, but it was a lot easier cold calling this time because I had a book and I had a little bit of credibility.
Right. Wow. And a lot of people are home now to take that call.
Yeah.
So where can people learn about your books? Do you have a website you'd like to tell us about?
Yeah, so I have, Cruising Interrupted, that's the new one, and the website is cruisinginterrupted.com.
Okay.
And then, the Joy of Cruising is thejoyofcruising.net. So they're the websites, and on each website, you can actually read excerpts of the different chapters of the book.
Oh, nice.
So you can, someone can decide for themselves if the book is for them. But and I point that out because, it's not a book just for cruisers. There are interesting stories, and so you can read either of the books without ever having cruised, but you'll be fascinated because I really don't talk that much about cruising. I talk about, for instance, one of my favorite stories in the first book. It's called The Legendary Manny Keogh, and so people probably wonder why is he called the Legendary Manny Keogh? Well, he's 72 years old. He is what's called the resident jazz ambassador on Symphony of the Seas. So Symphony of the Seas is the world's largest cruise ship, and he appears in their jazz club on a nightly basis. Okay, so that's his connection to cruising. What people don't know until you read this fascinating story is I was a big fan of Manny Keogh 40 years ago.
Wow.
He used to be in a rock band, and he won a Grammy Award.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if you ever heard of Billy Preston, but Billy Preston was a famous rock star, and he was Billy Preston's drummer.
Wow.
And then after Billy Preston, he moved to a group, again, a very well-known funk band of the 80s called Grand Central Station.
Oh, wow.
And he was the drummer for Grand Central Station. And I saw Grand Central Station when I was 18 years old. I was in the front row. And I distinctly remember him, 40 years ago. Well, now, he has a different life. His roots originally were jazz, and he's now the resident jazz. And so his story is just a very interesting story. How he's come, full circle. So it's just stories. Cruising is sort of an afterthought. It's the stories that it's the richness of the stories that make them, get them in the book.
Well, I'll have to pick up the second one too, because I really did enjoy the first one, and I passed it around to quite a few people. But it's a lot of fun, and I wish you the best of luck in the second one. I'm excited to pick that one up. And White Man's Disease, I'm definitely going to read that because we have something in common there. So I definitely want to check that out. But
well, White Man's Disease. I know it sounds overly dramatic, but I like to say White Man's Disease saved my life. I wrote White Man's Disease when I was 58 years old, and I am ever since writing that book. It's like I'm a new person. I'm on my second life, and you got to read it to understand it. And so, and then that has a website too, whitemansdisease.com, and that has excerpts, and you can read some moving. I have a great excerpt on that website about a conversation I had with people that I know all of your listeners have heard of, who's Muhammad Ali.
I remember you telling me that.
Yeah, and so people say, well, why would Muhammad Ali be in the book, or why would a conversation with Muhammad Ali be in the book? It's a moving book, and so while I love all three of my books, and the two cruising books, will sell way more than White Man's Disease. I've had more readers of White Man's Disease reach out to me individually than the other books. In fact, so many that I have a collage, which I love, of inspirational quotes that readers have sent to me.
Wow.
Reflections they have about the book. And so every time I'm a little bit feeling down or feeling funky or need some inspiration to write, I pull out this collage. I mean, these are actual quotes. And I pull out this collage and I just kind of read it. My favorite is, when is the movie coming out?
Well, I know someone who directs movies, so I need to get this book in my hands. We need some inspirational movies. We need that, because I'd like to see my cancer book be made into one too, because I know it's like this. We have ups and downs, but like you, that's the book that connects me to the audience, and that's the one that I've gotten the most, because it's a very humbling thing, and that's what keeps us writing for sure. Yeah,
you'll love the book, because as you alluded to earlier, we have a little bit of a connection, and the book centers around medical issues,
right?
And it's a quick read. One real quick story. I just real quick. One blog post I have on my website is from someone I worked with 20 years ago. Haven't seen her in 20 years, but she's in another state. She bought the book, and she said she bought the book, or she ordered the book, and she just got home from the airport. She had a conference, and the book was in the mail. And she said, before she went to bed, she just read the first couple of pages. She ended up reading the whole book in one sitting.
Oh my gosh! And that's oh my gosh!
So that made her send me an email, and I was so moved by her email that I wrote a blog post about.
Oh, that's the greatest feeling as an author. It really is.
Yeah. It sounds like marketing talk, but this is a real story. She couldn't put it down.
Yep, those are the best words ever. Well, Dr. Thornton, we got to wrap up our time here, but I just want to congratulate you with all the awards and, surviving everything you've been through, and you've been a real inspiration to our listeners, and I just thank you, and best of luck in the new book, and happy cruising. Thank you.
Happy cruising.